Pocketcon.
Yo! Welcome to Pocketcon 2021! I cannot believe that it's already been this many years. Oh my God. Pocketcon, we've been doing this for now 10 years. This is the 10th year of Pocketcon. It is not our 10th convention, but it's the 10th year that we're doing this. We will be live again. It's coming back very soon, so just so you know. But until then, hey, you gotta do things virtual. That's just how it is. The world is in a very interesting state. We're in a pandemic. Some people forget that we're in a pandemic, but people at Pocketcon, we have not. And we work with a lot of young people of color, and specifically those who live with their grandparents, all that kind of stuff. So we want to make sure that they can enjoy this convention as safely as possible. And with that being said, let's have a discussion, all right? So we have some special guests, but before we bring those special guests in, I want to bring in our co-creator of Pocketcon. Her name is Kendra. Welcome!
Hey, everyone.
What's going on, Kendra? How you feeling today?
I'm feeling pretty good. Getting ready to do virtual Pocketcon coming up on December 5th.
Well, technically,
and
if
looking
you're
forward to
watching this,
seeing
it's
everyone
today.
there.
Well, technically, if you're watching, it's today. So this is not pre-recorded. Even no, I'm just kidding. Also, Kendra, I know you're at home with the baby, and if you want to know how old Pocketcon is, how old is your child Kayri today?
Kayri is 8 years old, and she was almost born at Pocketcon.
That's right. If you want to know how old Pocketcon is, Kendra went into labor back in 8 years ago at a Pocketcon, and that was the year that I had to do it by myself. So without further ado, I think it's time to introduce some artists that I'm extremely excited about. The first artist I want to bring in actually was the featured artist on that year. I believe that you went into labor as our Pocketcon artist. Everybody make some noise for Ashley Woods. What is up, Ashley? How you doing? How you living? You're glowing. It's just like, if I'm gonna zoom in on this camera so y'all can see, but I mean, she is glowing today. What's up, Ashley? How you feeling? How was your day so far? How you feeling so far today? What's going on?
I feel great. The day is going smooth. I'm just happy to be here. I actually remember that specific day when everyone rushed Kendra out the building. So I can't believe it's been 8 years. It's crazy. And I just think it's awesome that Pocketcon has been around that much longer. So it's cool to be here.
Absolutely. And for those of y'all that are not necessarily familiar maybe with Ashley's work, Ashley, you want to tell them a little bit about yourself, your art, how long you've been at this work, just a quick general overview of like who you are as an artist.
So I am from the South Side of Chicago.
South Side?
And I've been working in comics and TV for the past 6 years now. My breakthrough project was Niobe She Is Life with actress Amanda Stenberg. And from there, I moved on to Boom Studios, Marvel, DC, and Dark Horse. Recent projects includes Lovecraft Country. So I worked on some of the monster designs, and that got me the gig. And then from there, I moved into production design and, designed the costumes and all of the set designs and all of that. So that was summer 2018. And I think Lovecraft came out like in 2019, 2020. And from there, worked on Netflix, just been all over. So right now I'm working on 2 graphic novels, and I'm actually taking my work in a new direction. So I'm excited to share that with, audiences in the coming year. And what else do I have to say? Oh, also, another recent project is Jupiter Invincible. I've been promoting that all throughout this year. And so that was written by Pulitzer Prize author Yusef Komayaka. And It's about a slave who cannot die. And I think that's like the ultimate form of rebellion, because slavery is all about ownership. And so the fact that, a slave master may own a slave's physical being, but they cannot own their soul, they cannot own their essence. And so it's interesting to see Jupiter. He inspires change throughout history due to his power of immortality. So he outlives the status of being a slave. He outlives the slave times. And I think that's what really drew me to that project, to hear a story of that caliber told in this tone. And what else? Also, it premiered at Tribeca. So it's just been a big year. I'm trying to like cram everything. But yeah.
Oh my God. And I got, I'm a little connected to this project, you know what I'm saying? I know just how much Ashley has been working her butt off, especially on Jupiter Invincible. How does it feel to work on a project that is talking about something that is so deeply rooted in our past history, and see it be, celebrated in this type of a way? Like how's that feel to be chosen as an artist to do this? You've been getting such amazing projects, like it's crazy. So even with working on Niobe and everything like that too, how do you get these types of projects?
I feel when you tell stories of this caliber, it's a huge responsibility. The story includes Harriet Tubman, and so as an artist, we'll talk more about technique and all that later. But when I design a character or I'm working on designs for a project, I try to emote what that character or what that setting entails before they even express themselves, in dialogue. So with Harriet, she's known for her strength, and so I try to, show that within her designs. And I just think it's a huge responsibility to tell the story in the correct tone.
Absolutely. The project's beautiful. I've got a little sneak peek at some of the panels, so let me tell y'all, it is a beautiful project. And when you see like what Harriet Tubman does in some of these, woo! Let me tell you, rifle game on point. So thank you, Ashley. We're gonna be talking about Ashley just a little bit more in just a second. But secondly, we have to introduce another amazing artist that is in the room today. Also a Chicagoan. Also, can we just make some noise for all the dope artists that's right here in Chicago? Come on. So I think it's about time that we bring in the amazing, talented poet, all the extraordinary. Make some noise for Ewing. What's going on, Eve? How you feeling today?
I'm blessed and highly favored. How are you?
Come on, somebody. No, just kidding. Doing quite well. Excited to have you here on the panel today. You're such an amazing artist, and have been doing some amazing work over the last couple of years. Also, you can get down too. I saw you, hit some moves.
Our little animated friends are setting a high bar for the performance standards here.
They kind of getting it. They have been getting it kind of hard for a bit. So for those of you all, if you've been living under a rock and don't know who Ewing is, would you like to tell folks a little bit about you, what you've been up to, your work, all that, what's going on?
Yeah. Well, first of all, if you've been living under a rock and it's nice there, please let us know where the rock is, if there's vacancies available, because this Earth thing is a little, sus at best at the moment.
Just a little.
But so I'm a writer, and I have been writing on a couple of Marvel Comics projects. The one I'm most known for is Ironheart. Hey, yeah, give it up for Ironheart, my girl Riri. I've also worked on Marvel Team Up, which is a mini-series starring Peter Parker and Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan. And I've also worked on the Champions series, which is really fun. The Champions are a teen superhero group featuring Miles Morales, Ironheart, Ms. Marvel, Viv Vision, Nova, and a bunch of other incredible young heroes. So that's kind of what I do in the comic space. And I'm just I'm really blessed that I get to do a lot of different types of writing projects. So I'm working on some TV stuff, and some theater stuff, and just whatever stories I get a chance to tell, that's what I try to do.
My God, son, and when I tell y'all that we got some talent. So this panel is to, celebrate women, also talk about amazing characters of color. Speaking of Riri, we do know that it has been announced that, Ironheart is about to come to the television screen and movie screen.
Not the medium-sized screen.
Hey, now. So that was actually one of the questions I know that Kendra had. We're about to bring Kendra back in on this conversation as well. But how does it feel, knowing that a character that you wrote for so far is now about to be on, the mini screen? Like, how you feel about that?
It feels really good, and it's exciting because the thing is, when you write Marvel comics or DC comics, or you get to write these kind of legacy characters, our job as creators is to step in and think about how you're building on a foundation that other people have already built. So I got to write a Peter Parker story, and Peter Parker is a character who's been around, since my mom was a little kid. Mm-hmm. And so the question is always, what can I add to this? And I think that with Riri, I tried really hard to give her a really good, solid foundation as a character and make people feel like they understand what she's about, the conflicts that animate her, that drive her as a person. And, I hope that with the medium of television, more and more people can meet a character that I think is really special.
Absolutely. Especially when we're talking about, so Riri is a character that lives on the south side of Chicago.
Yes, sir.
You also live on the south, like you grew up in Chicago as well.
Yeah.
Did that go into a lot of the creation process for you, like how you would want to depict this type of character? You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. If you think about like iconic superheroes, superheroes are very tied to a sense of place, right? And so when we think about Peter Parker, we think about Spider-Man, we think about New York, we think about Batman, we think about Gotham. And, I really wanted to make Chicago, this is a little bit of a cliche, but I wanted to make Chicago like a character in the story. And I really wanted people who are from Chicago to feel like they could recognize certain places and things and little elements, and people who are not from here to see a version of the city that they might not always see on television or in movies. And a secret for those of you who are out there who want to be writers, the secret about writing is that the more specific you are with the details of your story, even if everybody doesn't have a personal connection to that thing, it just makes your character deeper in a way that makes them feel real, right? And so I know that when we show close details of Chicago, that makes Riri feel like a richer character and a more real person, even for people who've never set foot in the city in their life. So that was a lot of fun for me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that.
I really enjoy seeing the neighborhoods throughout, and especially because I feel like a lot of people feel like the city ends at 60th Street, and seeing all the South Side depicted, I really enjoy.
I think most people wouldn't. I would say for some people the city ends roundabout Roosevelt. So yeah, I think 60th Street is generous. So yeah, that was a lot of fun, and I also part of Riri goes to MIT, which is in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is adjacent to Boston. And she pretty quickly in my run leaves and comes back home to Chicago for a variety of circumstances. But I actually lived in Boston for 5 years, and I did want to show certain neighborhoods, majority Haitian neighborhoods, Vietnamese neighborhoods that she spends time in there. And there's one scene where she stops a robbery in this neighborhood called Dorchester, and it actually was featured in the local newspaper. That this one scene, took place here in this Marvel comic, and that really showed me how important it is to show these different types of locations, because you're never going to see a headline in the newspaper in New York about, being featured in a movie or a comic book. But for some communities, it really counts for a lot because it doesn't happen all the time. So that kind of taught me a valuable lesson.
That's really interesting too, talking about Dorchester specifically. As a person who used to work for Theaster Gates and like what he's been doing with the Dorchester projects and whatnot, like kind of taking a community in an area that is, I don't necessarily want to say, as had their different evolutions over time.
Right.
But to take an area and then do more work with it, and now to see it being celebrated, you know, like it do you feel that the aspect of being seen is something that folks were able to grasp from your books? Do you is that something that you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I hope so. You know, I think that what I hope for, you know, specifically thinking about some of the themes of Pocketcon, is that a lot of us growing up as young people, we had to learn to see ourselves in characters that were very different than us. And we had to learn to find those universal threads so that, you know, someone who, you know, a kid who's never, to keep using Spider-Man as just an easy example, a kid who's never grown up in New York or been to New York, you know, is supposed to relate to this young white man. And through empathy, you know, we're able to do that, and through telling those universal themes. But the thing is that people of color, characters of color, we also have universal experiences. We also have human experiences that anybody can tap into. And what I really, really hope for in writing these stories, specifically in my identity as a Black woman, I really want there to be lots of different types of Black people in these stories, so that it's not just the burden of, you know, this one character who has to be everything for everybody. And, you know, real quick, one of the characters that I'm most proud of including in Ironheart, there's a character named Silhouette, who is a superhero who's disabled. And she's a Black disabled woman superhero. And she's incredibly cool and tough and strong and smart and slick. And she's actually a character, I didn't invent her. She's actually an older Marvel character from the 90s that a lot of people kind of forgot about or hadn't really included in a lot of things. And so we kind of brought her back in this Ironheart story. And, you know, we got letters from disabled readers who said, this was always my favorite character growing up. It meant so much to me to see, you know, this superhero who uses crutches, and that's part of her identity. It's not that it's something she's overcoming. It's part of who she is. And, you know, it just goes to show the audience is out there waiting for those points of connection. And they really appreciated seeing her. But, you know, we have to do the job. So I want to have, you know, the Black queer people, the Black disabled people, the Black undocumented people, I want all different types of people of color to see themselves in these stories.
Yep. Thank you so much, yo. That is, yes, exactly. And thank you for saying that, because that is literally the whole essence of why we have Pocketcon, and it's all about representation. Speaking of representation, I would like to bring Ashley back into the conversation with this one, because Ashley's style specifically is in the genre of what most would call anime, right? So being a woman of color who is now stepping into the realms of, you know, creating characters that are let's just say that anime doesn't always get Black characters right. Let's just say it like that, okay? I'm not
Which is wild, because Black people love anime.
It's so true.
But we are always out here looking wild.
I mean, it's tough. It's tough out there, because, you know, I don't like, you know, I'm gonna be honest, I never really thought about Mr. Popo being Black until like I got older, and I was like, oh man, is he supposed to be Black? But you know what? It's a couple of representations, you know what I'm saying? They're out there, you know what I'm saying? So they exist, but it's just more of like, how do we get better represented out there in the anime community? And that's where I feel like someone like Ashley comes in, and they have always been influenced by this. But can you tell us a little bit more, Ashley, about your creation process when creating characters of color that just so happen to also would you consider yourself anime influenced? Like, how do you feel about that?
Oh yeah, I'm heavily anime influenced, as well as video games. My process, I approach drawing characters of color the same way I approach any other character from any other group. I'm looking at who they are as a person first, and, you know, I build upon that. Their skin, that comes secondary as far as, you know, design purposes, but there is an importance of representation. So, you know, that goes without saying. But I do think that it's like, you know, Eve had just mentioned, it's important to present well-rounded characters. And as she was talking, I was making a list of some characters that I'm familiar with from video games. Some of them include Barrett from Final Fantasy VII.
Hey. Gun show. Sorry, don't listen to me. I'm good.
Okay, are you being goofy?
Yeah.
But I think it's important to show, well-rounded Black characters because audiences are used to seeing our characters either suffering with trauma porn, or we're held on this super high pedestal and we can't do any wrong. And when that happens, it's almost those characters aren't relatable. We're everyday people and we're complicated by nature. We have a good side and a bad side. And so we can see that expressed in, say, Barrett, as I mentioned, Barrett from Final Fantasy VII. He was a political activist working against Shinra. Shinra was destroying the world with their pollution and stealing from the live stream and all of that. So Barrett, his heart is in the right place, but some of his ways are a bit dramatic, to say the least. So in the beginning, even Cloud, the main character, he couldn't take Barrett seriously. And it's kind of offensive, but Cloud suggested that Barrett get some help because he's just that passionate about his mission to save the world. But yeah, Barrett is one example. We also have Vixen from DC Comics.
Hey.
Now I'm not exactly too familiar with her story, but I think she was a villain at a certain point within the DC storyline, but she still has a huge audience. People still love her regardless of what side she stands for. Also in Far Cry 5, it's a video game that came out in 2018. It starred these two Black sisters, and they had their hair braided, and they're toting guns, and they're in this Jeep. And it's a shooting game, but it's starring two Black women. And I thought that was a really interesting twist, because in the Far Cry series over the early 2000s until now, it's always shown a different group of people leading those stories. I just think it's nice to see Black people playing more complicated roles. What else? One final example. Actually, there's two. Ikora from Destiny. She's a leader at this place called the Tower, and there's 3 leaders, and she's the top leader within that triangle of leaders. And then the last example are Henry and his little brother Sam from the Last of Us video game. It's a zombie game, and I think what makes them interesting is the fact, spoiler alert, Sam, the younger brother, he's bitten by a zombie, and he hides his bite mark until he turns later in the game. And his older brother Henry, who spent the whole time protecting him, in the end he shoots and kills his little brother, and then he turns and he commits suicide. And it's interesting to see a Black character do that, because we're so used to seeing other groups of people do that in stories. And at that point in the story, it's not about their skin tone, that they're Black. They're just people going through something really harsh in a really tough post-apocalyptic environment. And that's something that anybody may think about or consider, giving their loved one the easy way out, and then they taking the easy way out themselves. So I think it's interesting to see those characters tell those kind of stories.
Can I ask Ashley a question about that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so I play a lot of video games, and a lot of times in video games, Black people are out here looking very ashy and very hair, like it just seems like the color, the hair. And I know in comics, as creators, we have to advocate a lot, like, hey, I'm not going to say who or when, but I've had times where the colors come in and I'm like, hey, this person looks gray in this panel, or you made them super light, like you lighten them up, or, and so I'm just wondering, like, on a technical aspect, do you find yourself advocating a lot in gaming or in animation to try to be like, can we look? And there was a big joke. I shouldn't make this joke because one of my friends worked on the Miles Morales Spider-Man game. I'm gonna make it happen.
Do it.
Miles appears in the first Spider-Man game, and then he gets the spin-off sequel. Somebody on Twitter said, can we just all say thank you to all the Black people who worked on the Miles Morales game? Because Miles had a serious glow-up between the two games, where all of a sudden his hair was looking right, his skin was moisturized, he wasn't purpley gray. So I'm just wondering, is that something that you have to advocate, like, you know, that I think sometimes, and I don't know, I'm not a visual artist in this area, but I know sometimes it's like people are just using filters and they don't go back to look like, what did that do? So how do you advocate for that or think about that? I'm sorry, Elton, but I had to ask.
No, that is a perfect question. Please continue.
Well, say if I have a project and they already have a colorist selected and I'm not presenting or doing my own colors, I don't advocate at all. I just let the colorists do whatever they want, because at that point I feel as though it's beyond me. But if I'm in control of the colors, then, you know, I'll do it justice. One thing I like to add to Black skin tone is our yellows and golds, because if you just slap on a brown or a tan, it's a bit muddy. And so it's almost like how you apply makeup. I'm not the biggest makeup guru. I don't live in Sephora, but I do understand the underlayer. You know, so you have your green bases and your orange, and, you know, so you go from there. That's how I like to approach coloring Black skin. Also, I think it's really important that we pay attention to the palms and the bottoms of the feet. You know? Laugh at her. But yeah, because I'm guilty of that as well. I've been so used to drawing white and other groups of characters that when I started having projects centered around Black characters, I totally forgot to draw, you know, color the palms differently. But I think that's very important. That's an important detail for artists.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you saying that. And then I'm gonna stop just taking over the interview hostage.
No.
But I appreciate you saying that, because I actually think, like, for you to have the honesty there, because a lot of times people will be like, oh, we need to hire Black artists, which is important. But Black artists can also have internalized things where if you haven't had the opportunity when you're being trained, when you're practicing to draw Black people, you know, we might not always come out that much better than some of the white artists, because at the end of the day, you're getting paid work to draw non-Black people all day, every day. And so I really appreciate you just having the honesty to be like, oh, I had to take a step back and really think about how am I doing this in a true to life way. And I hope more and more artists will do that, so we can be out here looking moisturized and glowful.
Come on, somebody.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
There was a question that I was thinking about actually too, with both of y'all, and specifically Eve, when you were having a conversation earlier about like writing about like trauma and all that kind of stuff. How much did that go into conversation in your thought process when writing for someone like Riri, and specifically because like she goes through quite a bit of trauma as well, and then also the aspects of having to keep up this facade in front of the white gaze that can happen, you know what I mean? Like this scene particularly, and I'll pop it up, you know, once I read, you know, when this is coming live. But there's specifically a scene where Riri is just trying to work, and then her boss is continuously coming in trying to show off, oh, this is this person, let me just, you know, barge into your studio and let you know. And as a person who works and teaches a class inside of a juvenile setting, where you have cool equipment and stuff in the room, I felt seen. That's all I'm gonna say. I felt seen. So what goes into your thought process when it comes to writing about Black trauma in this type of a way?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question, because so, you know, we talked earlier about you kind of inherit a story that other people have already started. And so when Riri came to me as a character, there were certain details about her biography that were already set. So she was a Black girl from the south side of Chicago who her father had been killed by gun violence before she was born. Her stepfather and her best friend / only friend had also been killed in a drive-by shooting and died in her arms. And she went to MIT. Those were kind of like the basic facts of her biography that I was given. And that was really hard for me, because this association of like, all right, she's from Chicago, so let's have every single person she ever loved got shot and died. Right. And on the one hand, that is very real, as a real experience that many people go through. On the other hand, you know, that can be very reductive. And so what I tried to do with the story, and similarly with the MIT thing, the way at the place where the character was when I started the story was kind of that she gets this lab at MIT, which for those who don't know is a very famous university focused on technology and engineering. And it was like, oh, great, you got the lab. Congratulations, like happy ending. And for both of those things, I really wanted to put myself in her shoes and think about my experiences and the experiences of people like me, like us, people that we know. And I wanted to think about how, okay, if she has lost all these people to gun violence, let's think really critically about how she might be dealing with that as a young person. And also I wanted to take an opportunity to talk about trauma, to talk about anxiety. Riri has PTSD. Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk about those in a way that showed it as a process of her healing and working through things, and not just like a checkbox on her biography, and to really think about the way this shapes her, but also to tell a story about how people who love her come out of the woodworks to really help her work through these things, and how that's going to be an ongoing process her entire life, quite frankly. And with the MIT thing, I'm a person who I think a lot of Black people have experienced this, where you are part of some sort of elite institution or some kind of fancy organization or something, and people like to remind you constantly how lucky you are to be there. And how lucky, how blessed and how grateful you need to be. And also to kind of trot you out to be a display, to be on museum display when it's time to raise money or when it's time to get good press.
Yep.
But then when the cameras go away, that you don't get the support that you need, or you're not treated like a person. And so I really wanted to show that the happy ending of like, oh, you got your own lab at MIT, that there's a lot of strings attached. And, to show her kind of working through that as well. So I think it goes through the same theme we've been talking about, which is like, if you're going to make a character Muslim, if you're going to make a character disabled, if you're going to make a character, queer, that can't just be something that's like, got them, diversity. It's like, that's actually a part of who that person is. It's a part of how they move through the world every day. And, you have to tell that story. And if you're not equipped to do that, just do something else.
Exactly.
Because there's lots of other options instead.
That actually brings me to one of the questions I wanted to ask, which is, are there any pitfalls that you see as being ones that are commonly stumbled into by either male artists writing female characters, or particularly writing female characters of color, or of white writers writing Black characters?
Yeah, I mean, so many. And I say this with love and respect, because the comic book industry is incredibly white male dominated still.
Is it?
17%?
Incredibly. And like, it's really actually quite mind-blowing. And I recognize and appreciate that some of the characters that we really love have come from white creators doing their best to say, I'm going to try to bring some different people into the canon. And that this process of, you invent a character and then somebody puts their hand on them, and they change and evolve over the years. That's a normal process, and that's part of what makes legacy comics so great. And so I'm not saying this to bash those people. And I also think that some of the characters that I write, there's a trans character in Ironheart. I'm not a trans person. There's, a physically disabled character. I'm not a disabled person. And I hope and believe that people who belong to those identities will come later on and build on the work that I've done, or critique the work that I've done in ways that are educational and beneficial to everybody. So I think that there are a lot of pitfalls. I guess some of the I do think that the thing about like representation of the physical character, sometimes I look at the character on the page and I'm like, people on Twitter do this a lot with Storm. You'll look at some of these representations of Storm, you're like, what happened to Storm? Storm looks real different. Like, she was this color over here, and now she's this color, and her face looks wild. And and part of that is that also visual artists, comic book artists are working under a very tight deadline, so it's easy for things to kind of slip through the cracks. But I really think there's always going to be pitfalls, and that's an opportunity for all of us to have conversations and to build and to keep making the work stronger and better.
Yeah, so if you guys are looking there, I have ported up the trailer for White Scripts and Black Superman. It's a great short doc if you've never got a chance to see it. But this is it basically goes over a lot of the earlier characters of color that was created right at the beginning, like your Batman, your Superman. Oh, sorry. Let's talk about the black characters. Green Lantern, Black Panther, Luke Cage. All these characters were created by white writers. So if you're ever wondering or want to see a documentary that discusses this, I would most definitely suggest that you check out White Scripts and Black Superman. They really have a good conversation about just how that happens and being overly masculine. You have, it's a white male fantasy of what they think a black superhero should be, and you get to hear some words from the late great Dwayne McDuffie. And there goes Stanford Carpenter. All right, what's up, Stanford?
Perfect. Chicago's very own.
Come on now, Chicago is representing today. Can we make some more noise for just Chicago? Period, and making it happen. But yeah, speaking of Chicago as well. Ashley, how does it feel to have a writer highlight an area that you know very well in her stories, being that Riri is a character that lives in the South Shore of Chicago. You are not only a woman of color that lives there, but also a blurred that lives there as well. So how's that feel to have like someone write about an area that you know so well?
It's refreshing. I'm not necessarily of the thought that someone has to look like me for me to relate to them, but it is refreshing and validating to see someone who looks like me in the mainstream, if that makes sense. I've always been heavily story oriented. The story has always been top priority for me. And it's a fine balance to honor that and then also try to represent underrepresented groups. It's a fine balance because sometimes audiences do not always understand what the creative team is trying to do. They don't always understand. Change can be complicated. Before the change is complete, it's messy. Yeah. A lot of are confused. They're like, what are we doing? Or I was comfortable before. Why are we doing this? But then as, the years progress, because the way I see it or the way I remember it, the industry changed drastically to what it is now. The doors opened for people who look like us back in 2015, 2016. Yeah. That's where I get my foot in the door. Before that, I was independent between 2004 and 2015. And during those 11 years, as Eve mentioned, the comic industry is heavily dictated by white men, still. And I frequented the same environments as those white men. I was connected to these white artists and white writers, but still I was never given an opportunity. I think it took society to go through a major shift. It took, I know a lot of people like to rag on Gen Z. People say Gen Z is over emotional and all of that. We seen the Suicide Squad, the recent Suicide Squad, make fun of Gen Z with the Rat Girl. Yeah. But at the same time, the main reason why these issues are being brought to the forefront is because of Gen Z and some millennials, such as Eve and myself. And the other millennials, they're just like all into entertainment and that's it. They're just there for the ride. But like I said, most of us are trying to make a change and we're trying to create opportunities for other people like us. And as I said before, I don't think I would have had that opportunity if it wasn't for society changing, 5-6 years ago. I could have still been independent because, when I got my break, I was actually working in Jewels. I was selling alcohol.
Word.
Yes.
Oh my.
Yeah, I was 29, going on 30.
Now, which Jewel?
Over on 87th in Chatham. Mm-hmm. Yeah, on the south side. So, I was doing that for, 2 to 3 years. And, the point is, I always knew since childhood that I wanted to be an artist. I've been drawing, since before I can write. I've always had an affinity for drawing. And even with that being said, I had this clear vision, but the door wasn't there for me. I was around the right people. it's just people's mentality. They weren't ready for new faces behind the scenes. Right before I got on this call with you guys, my current editor and writer at I don't want to say which comic book publisher yet, but I just got an email basically praising my artwork. I had sent in some thumbnails, some storyboards, and they were really praising my storytelling. They're like, you can really tell a story, because it's not just about how the art looks, but it's about how it flows, the pages, the pauses. Sometimes pages don't need dialogue. The action is dialogue in itself. And it just felt really good and validating, to be recognized, by my creative team, for that. I wish it would have happened sooner, but I think my experience validates other creative Black people's experiences trying to get into the industry, or they're orbiting the industry. I just want to add one final point, that I think a lot has changed with the internet. The internet has leveled the ground, the playing field, excuse me. So a lot of people do not, or creatives hoping to get their big break, you can make your own big break nowadays. You don't have to wait to be discovered. And so that also plays in the advantage of, Black creatives. You see that on Twitter and IG primarily, maybe even TikTok. I think TikTok is breeding some of the best directors and cinematographers that we may have seen yet, because of these editing features and all of that. Every time we see a TikTok video, it's like, oh, how do they edit these videos and these clips to do what they're doing? But yeah, that's all I have to say about that. I kind of like was rambling.
No, absolutely. So we're getting close to the end of this conversation. I know that Eve has a hard stop at 12, and I know that Kendra also had like one more burning question that I know that we wanted to ask, which is, since we got both of you creative folks in the spot, so Kendra, you want to ask that question? You know what I mean?
Well, actually, my question was, this was just sort of a fun one. If you guys had a chance to team up on a project, what are some ideas that you think would be amazing to explore with another Black female creator of this caliber?
Period. I can't. So I'm already like, I'm gonna email my editor about Ashley after this.
Come on, somebody.
So hopefully that can really happen. So I'm not gonna say, although but I would love to work with Ashley on something. I mean, also I can say I have a new project I'm working on for Marvel that's not public yet, but it's not Storm. So my answer to this is always, until I get to write a Storm book, my answer to this question is always Storm.
Yeah, there we go.
And it's not Storm.
Make it happen.
About Eden for a long time, so like, yes, it's a yes, hell yeah.
It will happen, and we'll have to put thanks to Pocketcon and the acknowledgments of what it is. But it is like, I think one thing people don't, for anyone out there who's watching who wants to get into comics, I think that there's just so many gems that Ashley just dropped. And one of them is that, it's not enough to just like draw really great static poses, that somebody sends you a script and they're like, in this panel, the character is going to be like walking their dog, they trip over a rock and they're eating ice cream and the ice cream ends up on their face. Like, you have to be able to draw that. It can't just be like, so I think I hope everybody heard that part. But the other thing is, it's like a very relational and collaborative medium. And, you might see a couple people's names on the cover, but, a comic comes to be because of an editor, a writer, possibly more than one writer, sometimes a separate layout artist, somebody doing the pencils, sometimes a different person doing the inks, different person doing the colors, the letters, right? And that you really have to be a person who's down to collaborate. And I think that also makes you a good storyteller, because it's both of those skills are about really listening and observing the world closely and, being open to learn. So I'm just really grateful that we got to have this conversation. I'm already learning so much from Ashley and from the work that you all are doing, Elgin and Kendra. So thank you for having me.
Oh, man.
Most definitely, it's an honor. What kind of stories I think I would like for us to work on together? it goes back to the first topic, of our conversation, just complicated characters and Black characters that aren't afraid to be the bad guy. He's not a Black character, but let's look at the Joker. A lot of people have been leaning into that character, some harder than others. I had a few examples I'm not going to share. It's like kind of bad, but in any case, characters that can like represent real life perspectives, frustrations, whatever, just real world, problems, and they don't hold themselves on a high pedestal, characters that are relatable. That's the kind of stories I would like to see. Mm-hmm.
All right, man. This has been such a great conversation. Make some noise for our amazing panelists. It's nothing that I love more when I can just sit back and listen to women of color talk. That's it. It's a good conversation, a good day for me. I have been truly humbled to be a part of this experience today. So lastly, what is the best way for folks to be able to stay in touch with you all? Kendra, anything you wanted to say first before we give it up the final floor to Ashley and Eve?
As a librarian, I look forward to your future collaborations.
Great. You can find me on Instagram at eve.ewing, EWING. That is my Instagram. And you can also find out my most recent book is called Maya and the Robot, and it's a book for young readers. Also is a Black character living in Chicago whose best friend is a robot. So if you like robots, check out that book at your local branch of the Chicago Public Library.
Hey, there we go. Kendra, we got that in the library, and I'm just want to make sure, is that there? Is that there?
I have verified it's in the library.
Oh, okay. I got it at my branch. I'm sure they've got it at other branches too.
Yes, we got it.
Right on. And that is Eve's Instagram. Please go follow her. Are you starting a TikTok soon, Eve? Everybody's getting the talk tickers. Are you getting the TikToks?
Absolutely not. No.
You ain't trying to get your dance on? No? Nah. You ain't trying to.
I'm older than I look.
No, just kidding. And Ashley, how can we stay in touch with you?
Also, I'm being silly.
I see you.
You can find my work on my IG, Ninja Trip, and also my website, ashleywoods.com.
And we've been showing the website throughout this entire time, so make sure you go and check that out. She does amazing work. I'm trying to pull up Ninja Trip so y'all can see this real quick before we get out of here. And there we go. Oh, wait, hold on. What? Oh, I didn't push them. Bam! Make sure you go check out Ninja Trip. It is amazing. Dope channel. All that kind of stuff. You can see more dope artwork. It is amazing. This has been such a great talk. Thank you guys so much for rocking and talking at Pocketcon. I hope that you all have learned a little bit of something about these dope artists. If anything, if you have never got a chance to check out their books, this is a great time to go do so. Enjoy the rest of your Pocketcon. My name is Elgin Bokhari. I've been here with Kendra Welk, my co-creator. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of this 2021 Pocketcon. Thank you guys again, Eve Ewing. Much love, peace, respect, and see you guys online. Peace out.
Pocket, pocket, pocket.